Bernie Sanders taking some heat today for the interview we talked about earlier, or referenced, with C. Norrin Jr. with the editorial board of the New York Daily News, during which Sanders offered some less than fully satisfying answers to several questions on matters of substance.
They repeatedly asked him for specifics on, okay, you want to break up the big banks, how would you go about doing this, what would happen? And he really had no clear answer on that. He had no clear answer on several foreign affairs questions. He had the wrong answer on the gun lobby, on gun manufacturers. It's a pretty devastating indictment.
His answers to the New York Daily News show some deficiencies on policy areas beyond, even in his areas having to do with trade or breaking up the banks. So these are potential weaknesses for him.
These answers they're just not acceptable at this phase of the campaign. We've seen in past interviews we've done with him, a couple, he doesn't have depth on issues outside his wheelhouse.
And really acknowledging on some topics he hadn't quite thought it through. That raises the question, if it's central to his message, does he really have a plan to follow through with what he talks about?
And was all over a lot of progressive social media feeds about the ridiculous, the sort of almost Trumpian things that Bernie Sanders says. His main goal in running for president is to take on the banks, and he doesn't seem to have a great deal of depth of understanding of what that would mean. He hasn't thought it through and he doesn't know the facts. That's not going to play well.
For Bernie Sanders, a guy who has been able to get up there and rail against Wall Street day after day after day and get called for specifics and just say, well, you know, Wall Street deserves everything it gets, but not have any specifics on that issue, now might be that time when people really begin to take a second look at just how effective he could be in actually implementing these proposals.
And to go to an editorial board in this city with a paper like that and be unprepared and to give those answers without apparent embarrassment is an embarrassment.